Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. So it seems that we've got the first release of a brand new Wind Duelist attribute deck, and the first cards come in courtesy of Sherry LeBlanc, a main series character duelist within the third series of Yu-Gi-Oh 5Ds. So the first card is Noble Knight's Shieldbearer. It's a level 4 light attribute warrior type effect monster with 800 attack and 1300 defense. You can only use either the first or second effect of this card's name per turn, and only once that turn. 1. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can banish one light attribute monster from your graveyard to draw one card. 2. You can banish this card from your hand or face up on the field to add one level 6 or lower wind attribute beast monster from your deck to your hand. Okay, so the Noble Knight monsters have actually been introduced. I think they were seen obviously within her own archetype. You've seen them being used within the anime, even though part of it was not dubbed. They also saw some play. I think you can actually get these cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. But as for the first effect, it's fine because you can actually just draw a card off of just banishing any light monster. You'll be having other Noble Knight cards which are also light attribute. The secondary ability might actually be better in that you're actually being able to search for a specific card, versus the first effect, which is just to draw the top card of your deck, which, who knows what you're going to get. You might get something decent, or you may something that's just not useful for that time. Horse of the Floral Knights is a level 3 wind attribute beast type effect monster with 400 attack and 800 defense. The effect, you can only use the first effect of this card's name once per turn. 1. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one light attribute Noble Knight monster from your deck to your hand. 2. Once per turn, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material, including this card on the field. Okay, so this card is also quite decent. It does help to further your strategy. As soon as you summon it, it's a rote for the deck. You're instantly able to get one of your Noble Knight cards, and that's perfectly fine. It's just to add to your consistency. The secondary ability is actually where its true effect lies. The ability to fuse some of your cards without the need for polymerization is really useful because you might not have drawn into it, or you need to run set specific cards just to be able to draw into it consistently. I compare this a little bit to Fusion Gates because that allows your monsters to just be fused without the need for polymerization. The only difference is this card has to be used as part of the fusion summon, and the cards being used for fusion have to either be consistently all either on the field or all in the hand. It can't be a mixture of both, which is where polymerization actually is stronger than this card. Noble Knight's Spearholder is a level 2 light attribute warrior type effect monster with 800 attack and 400 defense. The effect, you can only use the first and second effect of this card's name once per turn. 1. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one level 8 or lower monster you control. Until the end phase, its name becomes Fleur Synchron. Also, it is treated as a tuner. 2. You contribute this card to add one equip spell from your deck to your hand. So this is also quite useful. I have already seen the boss monster for this deck, and that's a level 10 monster. There's also a synchro monster, which is Fleur de Chevalier, which is a level 8 monster. So making this a Fleur Synchron card through this card's ability lets you just go into your fused level 10 monster much easier rather than having to use multiple level monsters to meet those conditions. The secondary effect is only really useful if you just don't need the first effect, and it just lets you find any equip spell card. You can use one which is archetypal based, or you can just go for a generic one, so you do have that flexibility. Who knows, this card could actually be splashed into a pure Leo deck if you wanted to as well. Centaur Mina is a level 6 light attribute beast warrior fusion effect monster with 2200 attack and 1600 defense. The materials are one light attribute warrior monster and one beast monster. You can only use the first and second effects of this card's name each once per turn. 1. During your main phase, you can special summon one level 2 or lower monster from your hand or graveyard. 2. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a trap card during your turn, as a quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, set that card. And 3. If this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material for a wind warrior monster, you can destroy one face-up monster on the field. Okay, this was also a card that you did see within Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, and it pretty much had a similar effect. The first part of the effect wasn't seen, but being able to just special summon a level 2 or lower monster means you can actually get your Fleur Synchron, and then you can use this alongside Centaur Mina to fuse into your Fleur de Chevalier if you prefer, or you can just keep it as more advantage on the field. The secondary ability lets you just shut down your opponent's trap cards once per turn. It's really useful because if you're going into your battle phase and then you were to run into something, this can just instantly shut it down. Alternatively, it doesn't have to be during your battle phase, it can be at any point so long as it's on your turn. The downside is it has to be on your turn, so it can't be used against your opponent on your opponent's turn, which gives them that flexibility to do as they please on their turn, especially if those cards aren't conditionally met and can be used at any time. The third effect just helps with the first effect if you are going to special summon the Fleur de Chevalier, which meets the condition of being a wind attribute warrior type monster. You're just able to get rid of one of your opponent's monsters on the field. Again, this is just adding to the advantage you already had, so it's just one of those win harder cards. A Cold de Zone is a field spell card with the effect: you can only use the first effect of this card's name once per turn. 1. If the turn player summons exactly one monster, destroy that monster, and if you do, special summon one masked token. It's a spellcaster dark attribute level 1 with question mark attack and defense. To the destroyed monster's controller's field, its attack and defense become the attack and defense of the destroyed monster whilst it had on the field, but it cannot attack directly. 2. If this face-up card leaves the field, destroy all masked tokens on the field. This card was actually used very late into the final part of the series. This was actually not English dubbed, so you will not see it if you just look at the English forms of the anime. You will have to watch this on the alternatives within the English subtitles. This was basically when Sherry LeBlanc was being blackmailed by Zone and said that if you don't do what I say, I can make your life that much more difficult. I've already done things in your past. I think there was some issue to do with her father who had money and was attacked by someone. The mother was threatened, and also because she comes from rich parents, there was always that risk of being kidnapped. And there was basically a warning behind that to say, if you don't do as I say, I will act and I will threaten you. The idea of this card is it actually shuts down all of your opponents and your monster effects, because your monsters just get replaced by effectless monster cards. It's fine if you're going for that type of strategy. I prefer Skill Drain because you can actually turn that on and off. You can get rid of it. Whereas with this, it's just pure, simple summoning, and it just takes things back to Beatstick Yu-Gi-Oh! Days. Again, this card is very susceptible to effects like Mystical Space Typhoon or other cards that will just rip this card away. It was used against Crow, I think. Yes, it was Crow and it was Akiza. And they were tricked into actually dueling each other as part of this three-way duel between them and Sherry LeBlanc. The only way that actually they found out that they were facing each other and not Sherry was simply because the monster that Crow summoned to his field, I think it was a level 6 monster, had an effect where it couldn't be affected by other cards when it was tribute summoned, and therefore I think Akiza was able to see past that it was a Blackwing. That means it's one of Crow's cards. That means I'm dueling the wrong person here. And the final card is Soul Binding Gate. This is a field spell card with the effect: activate this card if you control no monsters, and a set spell or trap card you control was destroyed by a card effect this turn. During the main phase, if exactly one monster is summoned, whose attack is lower than your life points, and Zone is in your graveyard, destroy that monster, and if you do, take 800 damage, then inflict 800 damage to your opponent. This is a very specific card, and to me its conditions is a little bit pointless. It would have been nice if it actually had a decent effect, but definitely not something you would consider running, especially since you're likely to actually defeat yourself in the process. As a side note, it does mention as one of reprint cards to go alongside her deck is Isolde Two Tales of the Noble Knights. But then again, that's a very equip-heavy strategy and very reliant on warrior type monsters, which makes sense for why it's associated with Sherry LeBlanc.